Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Hello and welcome to Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. I'm Becky Parker-Geist and I'm your host. Audiobook Connection is your place to learn about the audiobook creative process and for authors to learn valuable tips on producing and marketing your audiobooks. This podcast is sponsored by Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. Hi, everyone. I want to thank you so much for joining me today on Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. I'm the host, Becky Parker-Geist. I'm also the CEO of Audio Voices. Again, thank you for being with me today. We're going to talk about some big changes that happened in the audiobook industry in 2022. So let's jump in. The first big event that I want to talk about, it actually happened later than the one I'll talk about later, but this is the purchase by Spotify of the platform Findaway Voices. And Findaway Voices, if you're not familiar with it, is a platform for audiobook production and distribution. So now it's been purchased by Spotify last year, about $122 million. And the move, as it was described by TheVerge.com, basically says it puts in place Findaway as the bedrock of its audiobook ambitions. It's being Spotify's. If you're familiar at all with Spotify, and I assume you probably are, Spotify has music, obviously. And then recently, in the last couple years, they purchased Anchor. Anchor is a podcasting platform. And so that's another vertical, if you will, if you understand that term in business. And then, so this third one is this third pillar of streaming audio content, and that is audiobooks. Now, if you know anyone who is a musician and is trying to earn a living from selling their or having their music on Spotify, you will know that is a losing game for the creators. Musicians earn only about 0.3 to 0.5 cents per stream. Now, obviously, the whole point is to get lots of people to listen to your music. And that's always going to be beneficial no matter which aspect of the industry you're in, whether it's music or audiobooks or podcasting. But they claim that that amount works out to about a 70-30 split, with the 70% getting earned by the artists. Okay? Just keep in mind that in the music world, unlike in the audiobook world, typically when we're talking about music, there are multiple artists that would then have to split that approximately 0.4 cents for a play. Now, in the audiobook world, obviously, we typically would have a single author. Not always. Many times there's more than one, but that is the most common model. There was another really big change that happened when Spotify took over and purchased Findaway Voices, and that is the Authors Direct program that was in place that Findaway had very quietly launched about mid-2019. It was discontinued after this purchase. In case you are not aware of that program and what that was, now it's discontinued, so this is past tense, but just to give you an idea, the claim by Findaway was that Authors Direct was a way for authors to sell their audiobooks direct, not going through a retailer, but direct from the author, and that they would earn 70% of the revenue from that sale. However, if you just read the FAQs, you would actually find out that what they really pay is 80% of 70% or 56%. So it's still better than the other options that were available at the time. I found that the misleading claim, very bold claim of 70%, to be a pretty clear demonstration to me that their ethics around communication with authors, at least, were a little shaky at best. That was definitely a concern of mine. But now this program is discontinued. I know that many authors who were participating in that program are now freaking out a bit about, now what do we do? Well, we have good news for you, and if you're listening to this podcast, you will find out what it is. But so it looks like with the recent acquisition of Findaway Voices, and shortly before that, the acquisition of Anchor, that podcasting platform, that Spotify may be aiming to give Amazon, Audible, a run for its money, at least in the audio content streaming arena. So they clearly see the opportunity for lots of revenue, lots of profit. And what that says to me is that they are recognizing that the growth trend for audiobooks has not let up. It hasn't let up in over a decade. And that their expectation is that it will continue. I agree. I think it will continue. But here's the thing, is that the model of revenue and sharing that revenue, the model remains unchanged. I'm not seeing any shift away from that in this context of Spotify and Findaway. So the model that I'm talking about is where the retailers earn the great bulk of the revenue, the vast majority of the revenue from each sale. And then they give to the author, creator, or small publisher, depending on who's the rights holder. They give just a very small amount. And at least in the Audible model, the calculation seems to be, they just whittle it down to so little that it makes it really hard for authors to earn a positive return on their investment. So the big shift then is that the profit is just going into a different company's pocket. But the model itself is remaining the same. One of the other things that seems to remain the same is that authors are still not able to have the control over their property, their audiobook property, to be able to offer discounts or promotional pricing. And this is a real hindrance because when you don't have that kind of control, it makes it very hard to market your audiobook effectively. So they're, in my opinion, a little bit shooting themselves in the foot because they're making it harder for the creators. And I don't know if that will shift in some of these other platforms, but I'm not seeing any indications of that right now. One of the other things that remains a challenge is that the retailers put up a very effective firewall, keeping the information about the customers who have purchased their audiobooks is retained by the retailers, not available to the authors. And that is especially challenging. We'll talk more about that and also the other big change that happened in 2022 right after this short break.
Frustrated by the royalty rates for your audiobook? Annoyed that when the digital distributors say 70%, they actually mean 70% of 50% or 80% of 70%, neither of which is an actual 70%. Wishing there was a way to cut out, or at least shrink the middleman. Yet, you want your audiobook listeners to have a smooth and positive experience, and a direct download sale from your website won't deliver that. Pro Audio Voices hears you. Out of our commitment to our author clients, we've created Amplify, a program that provides an actual 65% royalties of the price you set. That gives you access to your customers' names and emails so you can reconnect with them, and keeps you in the driver's seat. Check it out at proaudiovoices.com in the marketing menu.
So, 2022 was a big year. Another big industry change was the bold announcement by BookBaby that they had partnered with SpeechKey and have opened the doors for AI, artificial intelligence, narration. Now, they're not the first ones to do that. Apple was doing it very quietly, but BookBaby came out into the public spotlight to announce it with gusto. Now, the pitch to authors, it was to make it more affordable for authors to produce your book in audio. What I see as something I would like to acknowledge them for is that they recognized that there is a problem. And the problem, of course, is that the creators, the rights holders, are typically not earning enough from their audiobook royalties alone to get a positive return on investment. It's still important to do an audiobook, but wouldn't it be nice if you could actually earn back what it cost you to actually produce it? So I appreciate that they noticed that there was a problem and that they worked on a solution. We took a very different approach, different angle to solving that problem. And I just want to address, and I know I did another podcast on this not too long ago, but one of the challenges that I see in terms of opening up this AI narration situation is that we're degrading the quality of audiobooks when we turn it over to non-humans. Granted, I will definitely concede or willing to say that there are many audiobooks that are not well narrated. They're just not. And so the argument by BookBaby is that, hey, there are lots of books that could be done better by AI. And to a degree, I have to say that may be true. But one of the things that is so important to your success with audiobook production is to have a great audiobook. And a great audiobook can only happen when you have a great narrator. See, the AI is not ever going to be able, I guess I shouldn't say that. AI is not yet able to offer, to produce the kind of nuance that a human can. So I feel like there's this attempt to solve the problem, but it comes at the cost of the quality of the artistic product. And that's where I have a problem with that. Now, it may be right for you as the listener. It may be right for someone you know. We each have to make our own decisions about that. But that's just my own opinion about the importance of using a great narrator for your audiobook. Because listeners, there are so many options, right? There are so many audiobooks out there available. The listeners, when they tune out, when they either get bored with the voice or don't connect with it, then you've lost them. And that is a great loss because you may have more than one book, right? You may want to connect with them in a deeper way. You may want to build community with them. You may have something more to offer them for them to benefit, and that relationship then, in turn, to benefit you as well. So I feel like there's a potential great loss by lowering the standard for the audiobook production. So now I want to talk a little bit about how we approached looking at that same problem of authors not earning as much as we feel they should to be able to have this be a sustainable industry. We're looking at tackling the problem from a different angle. If authors are earning the majority of revenue from each sale, that alone is a game changer. And what that means is that some of those, there are just like a couple places where big chunks of revenue get pulled out as profit for somebody else. The retailers is the main one, and sometimes the app stores can be another. mostly what we're seeing in the audiobook world is that it is the retailers that are taking the big chunk. Okay. So, if you were able to earn more from each sale, and if you were able to have control over your audiobook product in a way that you could more effectively market it, have access to promotional pricing and tools, have access to having access to your customer information, that is an enormous game changer. That is where it just turns the industry on its head. And that is what we're doing with Amplify Audiobooks. Amplify Audiobooks is like the Etsy of audiobooks in a way, in that it is a direct sale platform for authors where they're not just on their own. There are some ways to sell an audiobook from your website and have it delivered to your customers in a good way. But if you can't do that same thing in the context of a platform with other, where other audiobooks are showing up, where your discoverability factor, it really suffers in that way. So if you can drive enough traffic on your own to your website, selling direct from your website may be a good solution. But if you are going to benefit from the community of authors where others who are writing in your same genre or to your same audience are there, that's going to help even more. So then you start to get that help with discoverability, the help with the promotional tools that you need, the control to change your pricing to whatever you want it to be, whenever you want it to happen, as well as having your customer information. This is where it makes a huge difference for you. The best way to learn about that right now is if you go to proaudiovoices.com/amplify. You can then choose whether you want to learn more from the author perspective on how you can participate and get this kind of control on your own for your audiobooks. Or as a listener, if you want your purchasing dollars to have a bigger impact, to support the authors that you love, then there's a way for you to check that out there. So we are all about helping have an impact, increasing impact. It is one of our core values at Pro Audio Voices, as well as community. And this Amplify Audiobooks is a way that we are expressing our core values by helping our authors and clients have a greater impact in the world, as well as customers who are audiobook listeners, being able to help you have a bigger impact yourself. So I want to thank you so much for joining me and taking the time to listen and hear more about what's happening in our industry. If you have questions about Amplify Audiobooks, I hope that you'll check out the website. If you still have questions and want to reach out to us, aren't sure how to get started in the process, then please email us, or you'll find all the contact information on proaudiovoices.com. Again, thanks so much for being with me today. Thanks for joining us for Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. Please take a moment to subscribe at audiobookconnection.com. The podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. Learn more at proaudiovoices.com. Again, thanks for being with us, and please join us next week.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.